They say the eyes are the window to the soul. I say they can also reveal to you your soulmate. I never knew how hard I could love and how much I wanted to live for someone else. But then I met him, and I knew the true meaning of the words soulmate. The coastal town of Bar Harbor unfolded beneath me as the plane descended toward Hancock County, Bar Harbor Airport. From my window seat, I marveled at the picturesque landscape below. The town is nestled along the rugged coastline, a patchwork of quaint houses, lush greenery, and the sparkling blue expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. Bar Harbor seemed to wear a perpetual air of enchantment, its charm heightened by the play of sunlight on the water. As the plane made its descent, a mixture of anticipation and nerves danced in my stomach. The prospect of reconnecting with my estranged mother after years apart was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. The enchanting view outside momentarily distracted me from the uncertainty that lay ahead. Dressed in a simple white blouse and faded blue jeans, I adjusted the silver locket around my neck, a cherished gift from my father, a symbol of the bond we shared over our mutual love for the written word, a bond my mother, a doctor, never quite understood. Today, the locket provided a comforting anchor as I prepared to step into the unknown. The announcement over the intercom signaled our arrival, and I gathered my belongings, feeling the weight of the journey ahead. The airport was small, embodying the charm of Bar Harbor itself. I picked up my luggage, a solitary suitcase that held the essentials for this unexpected chapter of my life. A text notification buzzed on my phone, and I read the message from my mother. She was held up at the hospital, and the excitement that had bubbled within me began to simmer. Several hours late, the message read. It seemed that even in our reunion, her demanding profession took precedence. "It's okay, Mom. I can bike," I replied, brushing off the inconvenience with a sigh. Her response was hurried, a brief acknowledgement without the time for a proper goodbye. It stung, but I was accustomed to her perpetual busyness, to the way she prioritized her career over everything else.
With determination, I made my way to the bike check-in. The crisp coastal air greeted me as I stepped outside, the scent of the sea mingling with the promise of adventure. I retrieved my bicycle, a loyal companion that had traversed many terrains with me over the years. A small act of rebellion, perhaps, against a mother who prioritized science over the whimsical world of words. The bike ride to Bar Harbor promised an hour and a half of solitude, an opportunity to reflect on the mother-daughter dynamic that had long eluded us. I pedaled through the charming streets, passing by storefronts with weathered signs and locals going about their daily routines. Turning 18 marked a milestone, a transition into adulthood that came with its own set of uncertainties. I was set to finish my high school year in Bar Harbor, an unusual arrangement for a mother and daughter who had spent more time apart than together. We were opposites, my mother and I, in professions, in passions, in personality.
I sighed, pondering the complexities of our relationship as I navigated the winding paths. Aria Lockheart, the aspiring author, collided with Dr. Lockheart, an esteemed physician. Our conflicting dreams echoed in my ears, the clash of the pen against the stethoscope. My father, a musician who had always supported my creative pursuits, had passed away, leaving me with the daunting task of bridging the gap between my mother and me. The salty breeze from the Atlantic tousled my hair as I pedaled forward on the sturdy rental bike, the rhythmic creaking of the wheels echoing the cadence of my journey. The distant cries of seagulls filled the air, their harmonious cacophony melding with the soothing sound of waves crashing against the rocky shoreline. Bar Harbor, with its maritime symphony, welcomed me into its embrace. As I cycled through the town, I couldn't help but be enchanted by the picturesque scenes that unfolded around me. The quaint houses, adorned with vibrant flowers in full bloom, stood as if frozen in time against the backdrop of the azure sea. The streets, lined with cobblestones that whispered tales of generations past, carried the weight of history beneath my wheels. My emotions were a swirl of anticipation and trepidation. I was here, in this charming coastal haven, on a journey not just to explore the mysteries of Bar Harbor, but to navigate the complexities of a relationship that had eluded my mother and me for too long. The estrangement between us, like an unspoken tension lingering in the air, cast a shadow over this reunion. Bar Harbor, with its charming allure, became a canvas on which the untold stories of our fractured family played out. My parents, married young and burdened with the responsibilities of parenthood before they were ready, struggled to raise me. Their youth, once a shared adventure, turned into a battlefield of blame as they grappled with the difficulties of parenthood. My father, a musician with dreams as vast as the open sea, faced the harsh realities of adulthood. The strains of responsibility muffled his creative chords, and as the weight of raising a child settled, resentment grew between my parents. Their dreams and ambitions, once intertwined, diverged onto separate paths. My mother, on the other hand, embarked on a different journey. The role of a young mother thrust upon her in her teenage years became a challenge she faced head-on. Yet, the burdens of motherhood and the failed marriage led to a strained relationship between us. The divorce was a liberating but bitter end to their tumultuous union. As I pedaled along the streets, the memories of their arguments, the echoes of blame, reverberated in my mind. I noticed the contrasting architecture of the townhouses that seemed to lean into each other, perhaps sharing secrets of their own, and others standing apart, holding on to their individual histories. The scent of salt water lingered in the air, intermingling with the sweet fragrance of blooming flowers. Each inhalation carried the essence of Bar Harbor, a blend of sea breeze and floral whispers. It felt like a nostalgic embrace, a reminder of the coastal towns my parents often spoke of during their younger years. The cobblestone streets beneath my bike held the imprints of countless stories. The wheels rolled over the weathered stones, creating a symphony of creaks that harmonized with the town's natural melodies. Seagulls above, waves below, and the soft hum of distant conversations painted a vibrant tapestry of Bar Harbor's everyday life. I passed by a bustling marketplace where locals and tourists alike perused the stalls, their chatter blending seamlessly with the rhythmic sounds of commerce. Vibrant hues of fresh produce and handmade crafts dotted the scene, adding a burst of color to the coastal palette.
The estrangement between my mother and me lingered in my thoughts. As a child, I'd yearned for her presence, the warmth of a mother's love, but our realities pulled us apart. Her demanding job, fueled by the remnants of resentment and heartache, took precedence over our relationship. And I, in turn, sought solace in my world, the world of words.
My mother blamed my father for the failed marriage, and he reciprocated the sentiment. Their bitterness, a toxic legacy of their youth, became a wall that stood between us. But with time, my father evolved. He acknowledged his mistakes, grew from them, and found a way to support my dreams. On the other hand, my mother, her emotions funneled into her work, remained entangled in the thorny vines of the past. In the quietude of the evening at the campground, I settled onto a worn log, allowing the weariness in my legs to become a tangible testament to the determination that had fueled my arduous journey. The air was thick with the soothing sounds of nature, settling into its nightly symphony, a peaceful prelude to the adventure awaiting me in this new town. With a sigh, I pulled out my phone, a reliable companion throughout my travels. As I scrolled through the gallery, the screen illuminated with fond memories of my dad's farm, the picturesque scenes of rolling fields, the rustic barn, and the laughter that echoed through the countryside, offered a temporary escape from the complexities of my reality. I honestly didn't know who was at fault in the fractured relationship between my parents, and at that moment, I found solace in the fact that it didn't matter. My desire was simple, for my parents to be parents, together or apart. My dad, with his joyous personality, had mastered this delicate balance, proving that happiness and co-parenting were not mutually exclusive. But I, unlike my father, was more realistic, aware that the world wasn't always adorned with happy endings. The campground around me served as a stark reminder, a microcosm of life's unpredictability. Various teenagers ran about, their laughter harmonizing with the rhythmic cadence of my exhaustion. Some formed jogging groups, and others meandered around seemingly more interested in sightseeing than actual workouts. The park, a short stop in the grand scheme of my journey, offered a momentary reprieve before the commencement of my new life in this unfamiliar place. The transitioning hues of the sunset painted the landscape in muted tones, and as I continued to flick through my phone, the glow from the screen mirrored the quiet introspection that enveloped me. The campground, with its flickering fire pits and the distant murmur of conversations, became a sanctuary for contemplation. The chirping of crickets and the rustling of leaves provided a backdrop for my thoughts, which meandered through the intricate web of family dynamics and the uncharted territories that lay ahead. As the last vestiges of daylight dimmed, I tucked my phone away, the pictures of my dad's farm now etched in my mind. I stood, feeling the lingering ache in my legs, a reminder of the physical journey mirrored by the emotional one. With a renewed sense of purpose, I pressed on, the campground fading into the backdrop as I ventured forth into the unknown. A journey that held the promise of new beginnings and the potential for self-discovery in this unfamiliar yet intriguing place. It was dark before I made it to my mother's home. My bike had truly seen its fair share of distance today. Strangely enough, it was me going off-road to look at the beauty of the land that slowed me down. A normal trip shouldn't have taken as long as I did on a bike. This place had a lot of beauty. I just hoped I wouldn't regret coming here. Taking a deep breath, I walked my bike up to my mom's home. The neighborhood was hushed under the cover of night, and the faint glow of distant streetlights cast elongated shadows on the pavement. I rang her doorbell, but the only response was the eerie silence of an empty house. I knocked and knocked, but there was no indication that anyone was inside. The lights were out, and all attempts to reach my mom by cell phone went straight to voicemail. This was like her, but I tried to be understanding. Perhaps there was a significant emergency, or she simply forgot about my arrival. Resigned, I decided to wait outside her home. The night air was getting colder, and the distant stars above seemed to multiply, forming a celestial canvas that stretched endlessly. I pulled my jacket tighter around me. The warmth it provided a meager defense against the chill that was beginning to seep through my skin. As I sat on the porch, I couldn't help but scan the road for any sign of my mother's return. Each approaching set of headlights teased my anticipation, only to dash it when the car passed without slowing down. The silence was occasionally broken by the distant sounds of the night, a lone owl hooting in the nearby woods, or the rustle of leaves stirred by a nocturnal creature. Despite the coldness of the night, a primal sense of heat shuddered through me. Goosebumps rose on my skin, and the hair on the back of my neck stood on end. The area around my mother's home was on a road with very few other houses. Across from her home were thick woods, their shadows playing tricks on my imagination in the moonlight. Beyond the trees, a large body of water sparkled, surrounded by more forest, or so the Maps app on my phone suggested. The isolation of the location began to gnaw at the edges of my consciousness. I glanced around, half expecting shadows to morph into figures, and every rustle of leaves became a potential harbinger of someone's approach. I shook off the unease, reminding myself that this was simply an unfamiliar place, and that my mother's absence was likely just an oversight.
Time passed slowly, each minute feeling like an eternity. I kept my eyes on the road, straining to discern the approaching shapes in the darkness. As the night wore on and the cold seeped deeper into my bones, I debated whether to find a nearby place to stay or continue waiting for my mother's return. The beauty that had captivated me during my off-road detours now seemed distant, overshadowed by the uncertainty of the moment. I reached for my phone, contemplating whether to call a cab or search for a nearby hotel. The eerie stillness of the night pressed in on me, and as I gazed into the darkness, I wondered if this new beginning would unfold as I had envisioned, or if it held unforeseen challenges and twists that were yet to reveal themselves. As I tried my mother's phone again, desperation creeping into my voice, I made eye contact with something across the road from me. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a red dot, a peculiar anomaly I had noticed earlier. But now, there were more of them. 5 dots, glowing bright red like animal eyes in the darkness. The feeling they conveyed was far from comforting. A sense of harm and dread ran through me as I continued to try and make heads or tails of what I was seeing.
The panic in my chest was palpable as I struggled to type a text to my mom, asking her what was going on and where she was. The eyes, once far off, were now closer, but still concealed in the woods, their intensity unnerving. Were they wild animals, or was this some kind of sinister prank? I didn't care. I had had enough. With all the might I could muster, I picked up a decorative rock from the porch and threw it as hard and as far as I could toward the woods, hoping the loud sound would startle whatever lurked there. The result, however, was unexpected. An eerie silence settled over the night, but through the hushed air, I heard it. Laughter. The laughter, distant yet distinct, sent shivers down my spine. It was an unsettling sound that reverberated through the stillness of the night. I strained to identify the source, but the woods remained cloaked in darkness, the red eyes now eerily absent. My heart pounded in my chest as I scanned the surroundings, the laughter lingering like a haunting echo. I felt a surge of fear and vulnerability, alone in the unfamiliar darkness, unsure of the intentions behind the mysterious eyes and the unsettling laughter that followed. As I clutched my phone tightly, contemplating whether to call for help, the realization sank in that this new beginning was taking a turn I hadn't anticipated. The beauty of the land, the allure of the night, now seemed tainted by an unknown threat lurking in the shadows. The unforeseen challenges and twists of this journey were unveiling themselves in a way that I couldn't have predicted, leaving me with a sense of trepidation and the unsettling question of what awaited me in the mysterious depths of this unfamiliar place. Eventually, my mom would arrive. Aria Lockheart, my mother. She was one of the few surgeons in this town, and when she left my dad, she wanted to move somewhere she could feel appreciated. Bar Harbor, Maine, was it? She rolled up in her white SUV, the headlights blinding as she pulled into the driveway. Looking back across the woods, I noticed the eyes were still there, their red glow a stark contrast to the artificial brightness of the approaching vehicle. "Aria, hun! I am so sorry. We got so held up at the hospital today," she exclaimed as she stepped out of the car. Though her arrival was welcomed, it didn't shake the feeling of dread that had come over me. "It's okay, Mom. Just, can you open the door?" "I have to pee," I lied, desperation creeping into my voice. I just wanted her to open the door, to provide a barrier between me and the unsettling presence in the woods. She questioned where my belongings were, and I pointed to a backpack. It was all I truly needed: a few clothes, some money, my laptop, and chargers. As she fumbled with the keys to unlock the front door, I cast a wary glance toward the woods, half expecting the mysterious eyes to reveal themselves in the light of the porch. The door swung open, and I rushed inside, the sense of safety returning as the threshold separated me from the unknown. My mom followed, her concern evident as she glanced back toward the woods. "Are you okay, Aria? You seem off," she inquired, her brow furrowed with worry. "I'm just tired from the journey, Mom. It's been a long day," I replied, offering a weak smile to reassure her. But as I settled into the warmth of the familiar surroundings, I couldn't shake the lingering unease that clung to me like a shadow, a premonition that the challenges of this new beginning were far from over. As we stepped into the comforting warmth of the home, I made a quick excuse about needing to use the bathroom and rushed to the nearest one. As I washed my hands, I couldn't help but glance at myself in the mirror. My reflection held a mix of exhaustion and anxiety, the events of the night etched into the lines on my face. After a moment, I rejoined my mom in the living room. She was seated on the couch, her face a portrait of concern. The room, adorned with simple yet tasteful decorations, felt like a refuge from the uncertainties outside. "Are you sure you're okay, Aria?" my mom asked, her eyes searching mine for any signs of distress. "Yeah, just a bit overwhelmed. The journey was longer than I expected," I replied, attempting to downplay the strange encounter outside. "Is everything okay at the hospital?" She sighed, a mixture of fatigue and frustration evident in her expression. "It's been a challenging day. Some emergencies came up, and we were short-staffed. You know how it goes." I nodded, understanding the demands of her profession. Despite her shortcomings as a mother, Aria Lockheart was a dedicated surgeon, and her commitment to her work was both admirable and at times unsettling. She patted the space next to her on the couch, and I hesitated before sitting down. The weight of the recent events lingered in the air, an unspoken tension between us. My mom, sensing the need for a change in topic, attempted a smile. "So, tell me about your journey. Anything exciting happens along the way?" she inquired, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. As I recounted the scenic detours and the enchanting atmosphere of Bar Harbor, her fatigue seemed to momentarily lift. For a brief moment, the connection between us felt genuine, as if the rift that had grown over the years had momentarily narrowed. Once our conversation lulled, I couldn't ignore the unsettling feeling that persisted. Glancing toward the windows, I noticed the darkness outside had deepened, the shadows playing tricks on my imagination. I stood up, feigning a stretch, and casually strolled toward the windows. "Mom, I'm just going to make sure everything is locked up for the night," I said, my voice carrying a note of reassurance. Brianna looked up from her thoughts, her expression thoughtful. "Aria, this is Bar Harbor. It's not like the city. People here leave their doors unlocked all the time. It's a tight-knit community. We're safe." She said it with conviction, but her obliviousness to the fear and anxiety that still lingered within me was apparent. In her mind, the dangers of the city were a distant memory, and Bar Harbor offered a tranquil haven where leaving doors unlocked was the norm. I forced a smile, not wanting to burden her with my unease. "You're right, Mom. I guess the city has made me a bit paranoid. I'll try to relax a bit." Brianna smiled back, her eyes reflecting a mix of exhaustion and determination. "That's my girl. We'll make this work, Aria. Tomorrow is a new day." I nodded, the weight of the night's events still hanging in the air. As I retreated to the guest room, I couldn't shake the feeling that beneath the picturesque facade of Bar Harbor, something elusive and mysterious stirred. The promise of a new day carried both hope and uncertainty, and as I closed the door, the shadows outside seemed to deepen, harboring secrets that whispered of a town not entirely as safe as it appeared. Stepping into the room that was supposed to be mine, a palpable sense of discomfort settled over me. The decor, carefully chosen by my mother, clashed with my sense of style and personality. Nothing in this room felt like me. Not the muted color palette, not the generic artwork on the walls, not even the bedspread that seemed more suited for a guest room in a distant relative's house. I sighed, the weight of the night's events coupled with the unfamiliarity of my surroundings. Even though this was designated as my bedroom, it felt more like a guest room, a transient space where I was meant to stay temporarily. Every piece of furniture and every subtle decoration seemed to echo my mother's perception of what I would enjoy. not what truly resonated with me. As I surveyed the room, I couldn't escape the feeling that it was a curated reflection of my mother's aspirations for our relationship, an attempt to bridge the gap that had grown over the years. However, the dissonance between the room and my own identity only emphasized the underlying tension that lingered between us. I gingerly sat on the bed, the mattress firm beneath me. The room was bathed in the soft glow of a bedside lamp, casting a warm but artificial ambiance. It was a stark contrast to the cool moonlight filtering through the window, a reminder of the mysterious world outside that seemed both enchanting and foreboding. Closing my eyes, I took a deep breath, attempting to center myself in this unfamiliar space. Yet, no matter how hard I tried, the room resisted becoming a sanctuary. It felt more like a stage set for a performance, where I played a role dictated by someone else. In the stillness of the night, as the town slumbered beyond the walls, I grappled with the disconcerting sense that even within the confines of my supposed sanctuary, I was a stranger. The shadows seemed to dance with secrets, and the room, despite its attempt at comfort, whispered of a reality where the facade of safety and familial connection was as elusive as the mysterious depths of Bar Harbor itself. In the stillness of the night, as the town slumbered beyond the walls, I grappled with the disconcerting sense that even within the confines of my supposed sanctuary, I was a stranger. The shadows seemed to dance with secrets, and the room, despite its attempt at comfort, whispered of a reality where the facade of safety and familial connection was as elusive as the mysterious depths of Bar Harbor itself.
It was a cold night, something I had to get used to. I was accustomed to the southern heat. Nights got to the upper hundreds in Texas at times, so I got used to just having a good fan and walking around with the bare minimum. But here, the nights dropped into the teens, explaining the bone-chilling cold I experienced while waiting for my mother. My first week here meant nothing. It flew by as the days meshed together. It was my first day of school that I truly remembered. That was the day I met him.
The air outside was crisp as I stepped into the morning, the chill biting into my skin. The school loomed ahead, a hive of activity with students hustling to their classes. Bar Harbor High School was a place that held the promise of new beginnings and the potential for connections that could reshape the narrative of my time in this unfamiliar town. As I navigated the hallways, the unfamiliar faces seemed to blur together. That was until I saw him, Orion Graywood,